I appreciate everyone coming out this morning. Welcome. My hope is that you are here to learn more about where we've been, what we've been up to this year, and then where we are going. So since I arrived at SMS, and particularly since the schools merged, I've wanted to just be transparent about everything that's going on, and I tend to forget because I'm in it all the time. So I'm always like, oh, everybody knows what's happening, but I realize that there's so much happening, and while you get snapshots of that through the connection or through conversations with advisors and faculty, my updates that come out on occasion, but this is an opportunity for us to really share the big picture of what we've been working on in the state of the school, both in terms of financially as well as programmatically. So, and thank you to Trina, who is my professional slide advancer this morning. It all starts with our mission, and what I love about our mission is that when the schools merged, we had an opportunity to really go back and look at the mission, both missions for each school, and we felt like we wanted to have something that really defined, that reflected both our commitment to our traditions and our history, as well as be forward-looking as well, and so reflect our new unified school. This mission is very similar to Steamboat Mountain School, the upper school's mission beforehand, and that just happened to be the case that we went through the entire process of reevaluating our mission, brought in former alums from both schools, faculty, and this is where we've landed. But everything starts and ends with our mission, and that's whether we look at our budget, how we commit our resources, to looking at our academic program or experiential learning opportunities. Next slide. And again, our core principles. One of the things that I've appreciated recently as we've been going through our annual hiring season is we have been receiving a ton of incredibly positive feedback from candidates who are looking at our core principles and they're saying, I want to teach at that school. This school really knows what is important for kids and values that. And I believe that we are a school that does put our money where our mouth is, right? Schools can have these wonderful mission statements, principles, a lot of them sound similar, but I truly believe that this is something we do every day. And I love the notion of our principles anchored around this concept of thriving through contrast, right? We tend to put concepts that are at the opposite of the poles at odds with one another, and we don't know what to do, so we tend to throw them out or they're not relevant. In fact, they are relevant, and they're relevant when you bring them together. So you want challenge, and you want support. You want students to be able to think independently, and you want them to be able to collaborate, right? It's not an either-or proposition. We want students to be able to do both. Great. So this morning I will start with kind of big picture, looking at our finances, where we are as a school, our measures of vitality, which is our health overall, and we can't do what we do with students, right, without the budget and the financial support to do so. And one of our main drivers, really the main driver of our annual financial picture is enrollment. So where are we this year? If we look at just some statistics that I pulled from our admissions office, as of March 1st, compared to from this year to last year, our re-enrollment was up 12%. So what does that mean? That means that our families who are here currently are happy and returning and satisfied. And so that's a huge indicator for us, because it's not just about bringing in new students. In fact, schools don't want to bring in just new students every year. You want to bring in new students, but you want to retain the families that you have, and then this is a measurement of satisfaction with our program. Our inquiries are holding steady this year. It is hard when you compare anything to last year. Last year we had such a huge spike in inquiries, What was interesting is we didn't get the yield we had wanted, and a lot of that was related to finances. We give out over around $1 million in financial assistance a year, in tuition assistance. That is a significant number for a school our size with a $6.1 million budget. So it's a huge commitment to families, but it is still, it's expensive, right? It's expensive to attend an independent school, and ensuring that, one, we continue to make sure that this type of education is accessible is incredibly important to us, but that we're also really communicating what the value proposition is. So our inquiries are holding steady this year, which again says a lot because they were up, I think, 40% last year from the previous year. So that is a significant number. And we would like to see greater increase in inquiries in our boarding program. And I'll share more about just our goals in a moment, but that will be an area of focus for us as we think about how we help find those families around the country and internationally who are looking for this type of education. I believe those families are out there, but it's really hard for us to identify them. It's a little easier when you're in Steamboat. We know who's here, right? And when we go outside of Steamboat, it's a much bigger market to try to identify. 8th to 9th grade. Overall, our 9th grade enrollment picture is really looking incredibly strong this year. We have more than 2 times as many students enrolled in 9th grade at this time this year compared to last year. We also have 60% of our 8th graders who are moving into 9th grade, which may not sound like a significant number, but it is a significant increase from the previous year, which was only 17%. Now, percentages and numbers are tricky in a school that small, right? Last year we had 6 8th graders. So, bear that in mind. But you got to start somewhere, and retaining over half of the 8th grade class into our upper school is a sign to us that we are moving in the right direction. There are also even a few of those students who are leaving, but they're traveling and having an international adventure and plan to return in a year and a half when they return. So even within that doesn't always provide the full story, but we feel really good about that. Middle school enrollment. So when I first arrived, right, in 2017, as for those of you that have been here along the ride with me on this campus, I arrived, we had 43 students enrolled down on this campus. We have 105 students today. We expect the same next year. So we've experienced considerable growth, which is good because in 2017 it was a little scary. And it was scary because of numbers, not because of the program. I always believed in this program and saw the value in it, but we just needed to communicate that. One of our biggest issues when I came to this campus was middle school enrollment. And we had conversations at the board level, and we were so small that we were losing students to the public school. Right? Think about like 6 students in a grade. That's hard. That is hard, especially at a time when students' identities, right, start to shift from in the early years when it's all about mom, dad, adult-centered, and then it becomes peer-centered and validation and who they are and who they're learning, how they're thinking about themselves and their own identity, and so much of that is connected to their friendships and their relationships with peers. So that is something that we've worked hard to grow. So our middle school enrollment and retention is the strongest that it's ever been. We continue to re-enroll our middle school students and have a really robust program. One of the factors that I believe also helped our middle school growth is our new building in the back, right? It can be hard when you're in a school and you start in kindergarten or first grade and it's a family school and you want it to feel home, like you want it to feel comfy and cozy and like you're home. But in middle schoolers want something different, right? Middle school parents, they're charting their own path. And sometimes they're just charting their own path because it's not that. They don't have a good reason why that, but it's not that. So when we think about middle school, providing middle school students with their own building, their own space, their artwork that's in the halls, their academic work, it gives them a little bit of space to grow and to develop while also allowing them to remain on campus. And I think one of the most special aspects of the way our campuses are structured, because I've been on a 6 through 12 campus, and this was my first time on a K-8 campus, and I often feel that middle school gets lost, right? Middle school just gets lost. Whether that's like because, you know, we want to just lose our middle school years because for so many it's just a challenging time. So it's like, oh, middle school, I don't remember that. But middle school is such a formative time in students' growth. It really is. And when you have middle school students as the leaders on a campus, you can give them challenging, authentic work. They are recognized for what they are doing. The younger students look up to them, but they still have a place to grow and to thrive and to bounce around. But it's also, they don't get lost in the shuffle, right? When you're in a 6 through 12 program, it's all about what the seniors are doing, or the juniors and the seniors. And so the middle schoolers get lost in that. And what I love here is how, by adding our new building and expanding our spaces, I think that's also helped with our middle school retention. So as we look at our areas of focus for enrollment and what we expect, you know, another strong enrollment picture for next year on both campuses, areas that we will be focusing on going forward are really our boarding program, as well as kindergarten. I think what we're seeing is we have a lot of families who will come to us in 1st or 2nd or 3rd grade. In fact, I think, Kristen, what is it? I could maybe open like a second section of 2nd or 3rd grade next year, one of those levels, because there is so much interest. So what happens, what we're seeing is we're seeing families who want to try the public school, and then they come after a year or two after because they're just seeing that it's hard in bigger classes, or their child's maybe not getting the attention that they deserve. But I think it's really important that we communicate the value of our kindergarten program and what it means to start in kindergarten. It's also just something to acknowledge it's a highly competitive landscape at that level, right? And if we look at just the number of schools that are available to families, I'm a big believer in having options for families. I think a strong community has strong educational options. So I will always choose and support that. And it just means that we have to be outstanding at what we do, which is fine with me, because we will always aim for that. Next slide, please. Other measures of vitality, and as we look at our financial picture each year, about 80 to 90% of our operating budget and revenue comes from tuition. The rest really comes from our annual fund. And then we have small portions that come from our operating investment income as well as our endowment investment income. So, but the bulk of where we are is with enrollment, which is why we focus on enrollment so much, as that drives the health of our school from year to year. One thing I am incredibly proud of is our overall philanthropy, which has been led by Brian Smith in the advancement office, Mona and Will as our development chairs on the board. The annual fund every year, we excel compared to schools nationally. So this year's goal, annual fund goal, $500,000. We have surpassed our goal when we have raised $545,000 to date. Right? This all goes to next year's budget, so I want to make sure that most independent schools raise for the current year. I really appreciated this model. I inherited, and I love it. I love it because I know exactly what money I have for next year. So if things don't come through, we have to make decisions, and you know it's actually pretty simple budgeting, right? Money in, money out. So then we have to tighten our expenses. So this we wouldn't have made this without everyone in this room. That you all have supported the SMS fund with incredible generosity and an understanding of what we do. And this is the difference in our program in good versus excellent. We still have room to even increase that. Don't worry, parents. We are focused on alums. I think parents are stepping up, and they are doing. You're doing everything to support the school right now. And alums, we are starting that engagement. and it's been so positive. But it takes time because we have to re-engage and bring our alums back to the school. But when I have conversation with our alums, they are so grateful for their experience. They're doing amazing work, and they're happy to support us as well. It's just a matter of continuing to have those conversations and making those connections. So we've surpassed our goal to date. That includes 96% parent participation, 100% faculty and staff participation, and 100% board participation. We are leading other schools in terms of participation rates and giving per student. If we look at participation rates from all of NAS member schools, so there's over 1,000 schools, the 90th percentile, when you look at parent participation, is 63.8%. We blow it out of the water. And that's because our parents and our families understand the impact that this has on our students and on our teaching and learning in our program. Giving per student, last year, average giving per student, $10,000, $528 per student. The median given per student at schools with similar enrollment, $8,000. At NAS schools, about $1,700. Yeah, it's significant. I'm spending a lot of time on this slide because I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for this community. Because it is tough as a small school that has a really rich and robust program. It takes a lot, and it means that all of us, we depend on you more individually, and you make a difference more, right? So it's kind of both that burden that we carry of like, you know, at a much bigger school, it's like, my X dollars are dropped in the bucket. No, it all matters. It all makes a difference, and it really does here. So I just want to say thank you, and we wouldn't be here where we are today without your support. We'll go to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the endowment. Right, so the endowment or endowed fund is really what allows schools to plan for perpetuity. This is about the future and ensuring that SMS is not just providing the best education today, but it's here tomorrow. It's going to be around forever, your forever dollars, right? The annual fund, the SMS fund is like today. What are we doing today? The endowment is ensuring that the next generation of SMS students, and we have students who are here who are grandchildren, we have students who are alumni, sons and daughters in our program, so it's been incredible to see the generations come through, and we want to provide this education going forward into the future. And that's really all about the endowment. Now, the endowment is tough, right? It's a tough case to ask for support for, because it's like this ambiguous fund that's out there, like, well, what is it doing? I mean, really not, it's sitting, hopefully making money for the school. We use the endowment income today, so we use the investment income, actually does impact our students today, and those are from the people who have contributed years ago, right? Those aren't your dollars, those are past donors who have, and board members who have understood the importance of starting an endowment. And you've got to start somewhere, right? This is a small number for schools, but how great, look at this. The board this summer had more cash in kind of an intermediate fund, and they decided it was too important to not move that money into an endowed fund. Plus, as a school, we now have moved into the phase of our existence where we are not worried financially. That wasn't the case 10 years ago, to be honest with you. So there's been a shift in the way we think about ensuring that our funds are doing the most work for our students. We were able to move $1 million, and so this time last year endowment was $1.8 million. Today, $2.97 million. So that's a significant increase. If you look at, however, we have room to grow. Where the good news was on the SMS, on the annual fund, we are knocking it out of the park when we compare ourselves to other independent schools, to other NAS schools. When we look at endowment, there's work to do. And so But, so we're in just above the 25th percentile. I mean, look at the jump too, right, from 50th to 75th percentile. And these are all NAS schools. So those are schools where you might have a donor that, okay, I'm going to give, a $20 million gift to the endowment. And that'll move the needle. But this is work ahead, and this is work ahead that we are excited to embrace as we think about our next steps as a school and where we're going. One of the funds, it's not an endowed fund, but it's a short-term fund that we established a few years ago when former head of school Meg Morse retired, is the Fund for Faculty and Staff Excellence. And so what that allowed us to do is we raised $350,000 in a year. And what that allowed us to do is that allowed us to increase our faculty and staff salaries. They're the most important assets in the school, right? We cannot do what we do for students without talented, caring professionals. And between wanting to pay teachers a competitive salary, because teaching is hard work, and it's important, and it's hard, and it is a profession, right? It's also, we have to also consider cost of living in Steamboat, which has just risen exponentially. You all know that. And so, as we've looked at these funds are used not just for compensation for salary, but can be used for housing. I'll share more about that, as that is the main. That's the main challenge of getting our faculty in, is can they afford to find housing here and to live here. And so what these funds have allowed us and helped us to do is to add over $1 million to faculty and staff salaries in the past 2 years. And some of that is some new faculty and staff that we've had to bring in as we've grown, or bring in other dedicated positions like learning support, as we've making sure that we are supporting all of our students to the best of our ability. But the majority of that money has gone to increase faculty and staff salaries and to bring them up so they can be paid a comparable wage as you look at their peers in the district. And then I would say just looking at other measures of vitality. Long-term is the most important, but if you're not paying attention to the operating budget as well, and short-term, that can get you into trouble as well. We have an incredible Director of Finance and Operations, Andy Winan. When I first arrived down here on the Emerald campus in 2017, we had an operational deficit that was predicted. We caught it up a little bit, but it was a $250,000 deficit. That was for a school with a $1 million budget. So that was significant, right? We now are looking at 4th consecutive year of operational surpluses, and the reason why is conservative budgeting. And we've done that by increasing faculty and staff salaries. We've also done that by putting money away for deferred maintenance. And I'll share more about deferred maintenance in a moment, but we now have $680,000 to address facilities needs. And this campus is small, but for our upper school families, 150 acres, an upper school campus that has its own sewer plant, off the grid, its own water. It's expensive. Residential has housing for dorms and dorms for students and housing for faculty. That takes money to run that and to maintain it. And over the years, the school just operated with such lean margins that could not address the deferred maintenance. So we're catching up over years of not having been able to do that. But we're getting there, and it feels good. But most of, I would say, when we look at the surpluses, have come from increased operating investment income, which has really helped us the last few years, and revenue from increased enrollment that happens throughout the year, as we have families who move to town, or maybe families who start the year in the school system and feel like this isn't working for us, and that helps us as well. So, speaking of facilities, we've done a lot. We, The big focus on the upper school campus has been really with the infrastructure. So we have a loan out for the construction of a new sewage treatment plant. It's not something we wanted to fundraise for. We thought of some really tricky campaign names that would be catchy. Thought maybe you could even make a major gift and name it after your enemy. Sewer plant naming facility. You know, it's some crafty ideas. But felt like, again, we knew there were going to be other capital needs and more exciting projects, hopefully, unless anyone's excited about sewage treatment plant. You can talk to me after this. This has been challenging. This has to get approved by the state of Colorado, right? I went into independent schools for a reason because I don't do well with bureaucracy. I'm learning why now as we go through this process, because there's different departments in the state of Colorado that don't talk to each other, right? So like the permitting process, the permitting plant approval process has been slow, it has been cumbersome, and it has been difficult. We have the financing for it, we have a contractor for it in the spring. We're hoping it will move forward. We're waiting on the last steps, and we're pretty close to that. So again, that is important because our sewage treatment plant right now is not working to its fullest extent, and so we actually have workarounds to be able to manage that at school. Last year, Cedar Hall, which has been the boys' dorm, received all new furniture. I don't think it had furniture since when? I have Pearson here. When was the last time it had furniture? We don't know. A long time. Forever.
Last time we got it was from CMC.
That's not new.
Yes, our new youth. Yes, it was. So we purchased all new dorm furniture for the dorm bedrooms. Again, this is important. I know I have my day families here, but think about it. Think about your child living at school. And you want them to be comfortable, and you want them to feel good about their living space. We were doing the same this summer with Aspen Hall, so that's exciting. That was a little bit more modern in its furniture, but still needed an overhaul. And of course, once the girls saw the Cedar Hall and heard about that, they were saying, it's our turn, and it's true. It is their turn this year. This year, we also expanded an upper school math classroom, so that it could fit the number of students. So you have the upper school main academic building, which is the older academic building versus the new building, which has a lot of really small classes that are just physically too small. And when we think about learning, right? Learning is no longer about like cramping students in at a table in rows facing the center. It's dynamic. Students need to be able to move, they need to be able to collaborate, they need to be able to use materials. And so we need bigger classroom spaces to support the type of teaching and learning that we know is best for students. And so with that, we expanded a math classroom. We have another classroom expansion, a small downstairs, it's another math classroom, I believe, on the first floor that we are going to expand. We're also hoping to build a Dean of Students office in the main building right next to that, so the Dean of Students can be central to what's going on rather than over on the side, kind of off of the nurse's office. We've purchased 2 new vehicles this year. I think we ordered them in 2021, and then they just showed up this year. They're like, your vans are here. Great. So that's been exciting. And whether you may not think about vehicles if you are an Emerald campus parent, but they are here all the time. In fact, they were out on the road this morning because we are taking students to the upper school for the Beowulf Theater production. I believe we're taking them again this afternoon to Strings for the Melange performance. So both campuses and students really benefit from this. And for parents who have been around Emerald for a long time, you'll note, right, we are no longer asking you to drive our kids all over the place. And you have other things to do and also different, better ways to contribute as well. So that's been exciting. Increased faculty housing. I am excited to share that when was it? Right before February break. It was right before you arrived.
Yep.
We closed 2 days before you arrived. We purchased the house right here on 8th Street. Yeah. I want to just say that I recognize that house has a really kind of fraught meaning when you think about what happened there this fall, especially for those of us that were on this campus. And out to the owner, and really credit to Andy Winan, and we thought, this is hard. We are downtown in an area where, this campus is porous and it's accessible to things happening in town. And thought, maybe there is a way here that there's some good that could come out of this in some way. And so when we spoke to the owner, he felt the same. He thought it would be important to keep it for faculty housing. He saw what was happening in this town for educators and not being able to live here, and so that was important to him. And so there have been a lot of renovations done inside the house by the owner, as with us, as well as we brought in different individuals to come and help cleanse the house as well. We felt that was important, and we've been honest to any of our faculty who are looking to be tenants there. So we are excited because what this does is this expands our property here. It allows for increased housing. It actually allows us to look at this entire space in the future differently. But it's a game changer because every house matters for our faculty and staff. And I have more applications for faculty housing than I have housing available. And our housing committee just went through that process. So not everybody who wants to live in faculty housing can get it. So again, we always need more, but we are doing everything we can. And just a huge thank you to the board for their work on grabbing the house. The house, right, we didn't have the money sitting around available. So again, we had some money that we could dedicate to it, but not all of it. And so the school took out a loan to purchase that house, but felt that, again, having contiguous property, there's only so many units of those that are available to us, and felt like that we had to take advantage of it. In fact, we are benefiting from Nancy Spillane's vision when she built this building, right? Built this building, raised the money to make this building happen to the penny. Then all of a sudden, the owners of the cottages behind the school, right? Everybody, I think, in here knows that we own 2 lots behind the school that house faculty, came to Nancy and said, we have these houses available. We'd love to sell them to the school first. She had just gone through a capital campaign, raised all this money. There's no money to be had to purchase the house. So the school took out a loan. We actually finished paying off that loan this year, made our last payment on that loan. Yeah, it's outstanding. And we have faculty who've been living over there, and that's their housing. And the reason we've been able to attract and to hire and to retain excellent teachers is because of the housing. And that has to do with both Nancy and the board saying, you know what, we can't pass up this opportunity. And I feel that we took the same approach with the house on 8th Street as well. Let's see, what else on here? Emerald Kitchen. This is exciting. We, last year, in our parent satisfaction survey, I would say that overall, our parents were highly satisfied with our program, with our outcomes. I think one of the things that was probably the lowest mark was the food on the Emerald campus. As you all know, we contract out with Colorado Mountain College, and there's not a ton of options in this town, right? We're not in a major city where you have food vendors and food providers that you can just go and get bids and choose one and taste and work with them. And I would say that CMC, despite the criticism, I will say that they have been really easy to work with, receptive to our feedback, but it's hard. Food service is hard, I know, because I'm also in the food service industry because we have a kitchen in the upper school. So we have to hire chefs and we have to staff it and we have to manage the costs, which have been, rising, 10 to 15% every year. So when we look at the Emerald Kitchen, we have an opportunity with a chef who's excited to come in and to make that a learning kitchen and a learning space and provide home-cooked meals. We are in the process of working with an architect who does commercial kitchens down in Denver, as well as a local architect, to get this, the permit for an approved commercial kitchen. It'll cost about $100,000. So that's a crazy number in my mind, but when I asked about it, and I talked to Rex, those of you who know Rex, and he's like, well, you know, you get the ventilation, the hood, there's a lot that goes into that. And so, so we are planning and moving forward with plans for a kitchen down here to really provide nutritious, healthy meals for our students that will also be opportunities for it to be a learning kitchen as well. And so we're excited by that. Yeah, lots to celebrate. I think parents and parents and our students are going to be most excited by it as we bring, you know, I think better food options for our
When will that
kids.
be complete?
We'll see. We're hoping that we have a contractor lined up. It's just getting the permit. So we have things lined up. So we're hoping to start next year, but if not, I'd say into next year. And then we make plans around it. But that's what we're hoping for. Student Center. In the upper school, the Student Center, beautiful space. New, was designed and brought online a few years ago. It's also thinking about our student spaces. We have a lot of spaces that maybe are just underutilized. And Margie, our Director of Community Engagement, has been meeting with students to think about how to improve our student spaces on the upper school campus. Where are spaces that are like the place you go when you want to like be loud and make noise and play foosball, especially since they don't have their phones anymore during the academic day, right? So where's a place you can go and have fun and connect and chat with friends and be social? Where are the spaces you can go if you want a quiet study? And so we're really reevaluating all of our spaces, but we wanted to start with the Student Center because we felt like that was the one that we were hearing from students needed the most attention now to make it a more comfortable space for students to utilize throughout the day. So we felt like this beautiful space not being utilized, and Margie has been working, especially with our seniors. I think part of the senior class gift will go towards the Student Center, but the school will also plans to provide different furniture and different access to kind of activities, games in there for students. Middle school Chromebook program. This is something that Trina and Josh have been working on with our student Chromebooks, that once they come into the middle school, the school gives them a Chromebook to use. We have been researching ways to make that process a better process for our students in terms of their learning, in terms of dealing with broken keyboards, screens, etc. And so what Josh and Trina have proposed is to have a 3-year, right, a 3-year process where a student gets a Chromebook for 3 years, and then after that they can either buy it for minimal, and then they get a brand new one right before. What grade is it? They get a new one. Is it 8th grade? 8th grade. Yeah, so they get a Chromebook in 5th, for 5th, 6th, 7th, and then 8th grade, and then they can either use that and bring that to upper school or bring it back to the school. So we feel like this is going to be a much better experience for our students in terms of their technology use. And then another project at the upper schools just focused on infrastructure. Generator, making sure that when power goes out, we have a generator, which we don't have that right now. Again, water, getting a second tank of water, so when we use all our water, we can go to our overflow tank, because we do run out of water after Desert Week. Kids come back, everyone's showering, runs out of water. And then network. Just, again, broadband with students, with the technology resource that everybody has, a phone, an iPad, a gaming computer, their other computer. We are drawing a lot of bandwidth from our network, and so Trina that's been ongoing, and it's just hard to keep up with. So Trina's been doing a lot with that to improve our network, and we will continue to do that. Next slide. Thank you. And then on the horizon is Campus Master Plan. The Buildings and Grounds Committee of the board and I have been working to select an architect in an RFQ process that will really focus on a campus master plan for both the upper school campus and the Emerald campus. One of the things that I love about the new building is right away it increased our space for student learning, but we also realized pretty quickly that we could use more space. And so that's a good problem to have. But right now, we're looking at how can we provide spaces, classroom spaces, athletic performance spaces, living spaces that are both dynamic and comfortable. How can we have pathways on the upper school campus and outdoor spaces that better support the integration of the entire campus? And then down here, again, if we look at, we need more classroom space and a limited footprint to build it with, how can we maybe look at another building that allows for increased classroom space, maybe faculty housing in that as well as storage. So it'll be an ambitious plan, but it's exciting, it's visionary, and this is what our students deserve and need. Right? This is the exciting things to give money to, not a sewage treatment plant. Right? This will be around forever, and it is time for this campus. And so I'm excited by this, and you'll continue to hear more about this opportunity. Great. As I said earlier, our most important asset within the school are our faculty and staff. Right? It's the people. It's the people, and they're the ones who spend every day with your students to ensure they feel supported, they feel good, and that they're learning. And when I think about, when I think about my own daughter, and when I think about when she comes back into town, who does she want to see first? Doug, Andrea, Jen, not me, not me. Our alums who come back and visit, their teachers, because that's who sticks with you. That's who makes a lasting impression. And I see it in my own family. I see it with our alums. And I see it when I'm in the classroom every day, just walking around and observing the interactions that our teachers have with our students. So as I mentioned earlier, because of the Meg Morse Fund for Faculty and Staff Excellence, as well as just our dedication amongst the board, and really establishing goals for faculty and staff compensation. For those of you that saw a few years ago with the tuition increases, we said this is going to go to faculty and staff, and it has. And you saw some of those numbers, right? They were down when we benchmarked it against Steamboat's school district. They were 65%, 70%, and those were often the faculty who had been here the longest, right? Who had dedicated their lives of service to the school. Right, so that's a lot to make up. 0 to 5 years, here's where we are today. Makes on average 100% SSDS. 6 to 10, 100%. 11 to 15, 97%. And 16 and above, 94%. Because remember, that's the biggest gap. So we'll keep going, and we've said it. And we said we'll get you this year. We'll get you a little bit more this year, but it's going to take some time. But that's incredible, and that's what I'd say the increased compensation as well as housing is allowing us to really attract highly qualified leaders, educators, teachers. So as I speak of talent acquisition, during our accreditation process, one of our key recommendations was to ensure that the school's leadership structure supported the K-12 school. Right? It's tricky. And when I became the head of school and I inherited, right, I have 2 campuses, I said I just need to sit with this and see what structure makes the most sense, right? I didn't want to make any changes until I lived with it. And every campus has its own needs, right? The students here have specific needs, and the students on the upper school have specific needs. On the upper school, there's a boarding program. On the upper school, I've got Michael Lackey here, my Director of Outdoor and Global Programs. It's crunch time now, so I'm excited that he's here. Maybe he's procrastinating on his work. This is the busiest time of year for Michael, as we are about to send, how many students in GS we have? 60?
59, yeah.
59 students out to 4 different countries for a month.
Plus 8th grade.
Plus 8th grade.
Plus 8th grade. Yep. So that takes a lot of work. Running a boarding school takes a lot of work. It takes dedicated leadership and attention, risk management, incredibly important, right? So the learning and the risk management are just as important. They have to be done together. And so when the accreditation visiting team came to campus, they had some recommendations just around the structure. And they said, not specifically what we needed to do, but they said we really needed to look and evaluate our structure so that it better supports the overall K-12 school. I'm excited to share that, and I wrote you all a letter about this and announced this about a month ago, but I'm excited to introduce to you all. Some of you have met Mark Gustafson.
I think.
Mark Gustafson is our assistant head of school. This is a new position that was created really to support the K-12 school, also as well as to help with some real strategic work on the upper school campus in the day-to-day. We are a small school, right? So there's not one person, administrator, that just sits and does their thing. Pearson knows this as the admissions director. She's an advisor. She's often helping with communications. I'm sure she's helped at the front desk. So we all jump in. But it's really important, as I have come to look at our cohesion as a school and the overall K-12 experience, that we have others on the leadership team who are really held accountable for that journey. That it's not just me thinking about it, right? And so I think sometimes when you have leadership at each campus, you want them thinking about, this is best for this group. And I want someone up here saying, this is best for upper school. But those can't be things that are going like this, right? So we all have to come together and make sure you have maybe this brand new math curriculum in the upper school. Great, we're gonna dive in, and we're like, oh shoot, the 8th graders get there, and there's a year gap, right? So we have to talk to each other, and we have to have leadership positions who are looking at that scope and sequence. So I'm excited. Mark started about a month ago, and it's great because he's been able to jump in, and he will just be ready to go next year. Mark has been a sitting head of school. He comes with experience K-8. He's taught high school. He's been in urban settings. He's most recently the head of school at Montessori School of Evergreen. Mark's been a colleague of mine for a number of years, so I've gotten to know him well and really respect the professionalism, the work that he's done at his former schools to drive program innovation and strategy in a way that fits with who we are. You know Mark, he's a personable guy. Like myself, he's from the East Coast and likes a good fried clam. We also hired a new upper school dean of students who will start in June. Those of you from the upper school noted that this summer when our dean of students left unexpectedly, we hired an interim upper school dean of students for the year, right? And Chauncey has done a fantastic job this year of keeping the trains moving. That said, we are thrilled to bring in Matt. Matt brings 16 years of independent school experience as a history, social studies teacher, has a master's in history, working on a PhD. He's been a diversity coordinator, class dean. And what I love about Matt is he's incredibly thoughtful. And he's also been selected at 2 different schools by the graduating seniors to be their faculty graduation speaker. That speaks volumes. So if you haven't been on an upper school campus, right before here I came from an upper school campus, I understand what that takes for students to really trust and to select that person. And so he's someone who's going to connect deeply with our students and help us to do the work that is ahead, especially in student life and residential community, as well as student support. On this campus, we have appointed Doug Davis as our next K-8 Director of Teaching and Learning. So Doug, I'm excited to share this news. Doug and Kristen and Jen, who's not here right now, she's teaching her class, have done incredible work down here this year. I think what became, again, apparent to us, especially in the accreditation process, is we needed just more. The leadership was too distributed. Kind of like my senior leadership team, right? Me having 11 direct reports, that's really hard, right? So same thing down here, having multiple dean structures, having Kristen as the director of campus operations and admissions. It was hard for our faculty to understand just different reporting structures. So Doug is going to really focus on teaching and learning, the student experience in the classroom, and ensuring that prepares our students for the upper school experience, who will work closely with Mark. Kristen Hurd will remain as Director of Campus Operations and Admissions. So she really oversees just everything on this campus from the day to day. You often know Kristen, she's the first one here. She's the last person to leave. And the two of them together, I believe are going to provide just outstanding leadership for our students next year. And I'm grateful and I'm excited. And I'm excited too, because what this means for me, by elevating some of these leadership positions, it allows me to be a little bit more present and not stuck in meetings as much with so many direct reports. So I'm hoping that not next year, but the year after, I can teach a mod class and get back to my roots. I've always taught an upper school class, even when I was the upper school director at Archer and the assistant head of school, and I was able to do that because we had a lot of support of administrative positions. Here, I haven't been able to do it as much. I did down here early on, but with the merger, it's been a lot. So I'm excited to be more visible and engaged with the student experiences as I have more support, and teachers and faculty have more support as well. Let's see, next slide. Great. So, major milestones for this year. The accreditation was a heavy lift, but one that I'm so incredibly proud of. That our school received a full 10-year accreditation and was acknowledged for our work, especially in the last 10 years, to provide stability in a successful merger. The visiting team noted that our program really, truly does reflect the school's mission, vision, core principles at all levels, from that student who comes into the kindergarten class to that senior who walks across the stage at graduation. Our students are engaged and joyful. This is what they saw when they were on campus. They're happy to be here and to be at school. And our faculty are dedicated to ensuring that all our students feel valued and supported and are able to thrive and grow. They also acknowledge our strengths as having a robust program for a school of our size. We do. We offer a lot. If you think about down here, our students do strings, they do art, they get outdoors, it takes Spanish. And that's all on top of the basics. And then within the classroom, right, we have teachers who are creating these incredibly meaningful experiences that both challenge and engage our students. So they acknowledge our robust program for a school of our size. Strategic priorities. Hold on, I'm going to share more about our room to improve. And I've said some of it in terms of our administrative structure. And some of that is focused on the recommendation to strengthen the K-12 identity. And that's expected. We're still a pretty new school. So we're still doing the steps to become a more cohesive unit, whether that's in our scope and sequence of our curriculum, whether that's in like our outdoor ed program, thinking about our learning objectives and our skills. There's room to grow there. The other area that they recommended we focus on is to enhance student support, support both mental health and learning support. It's hard to read anything these days without hearing about mental health in adolescents. It is very real. 1 in 4 adolescents struggles with a mental health issue. And we have a number of students who need additional support to be successful in the learning program. And so we need to do a better job at ensuring that we have the appropriate both personnel to respond to our student support needs, as well as I think about preparing and being thoughtful about ways that we can identify students early on or think about well-being in ways beyond just a responsive approach. And I think we have done that here. I look at Ruler, I look at our advisory program in the upper school, but there's always more to be done. The other area of focus and recommendation was to clarify our diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, philosophy, goals, and metrics, and I'm excited to share more about what the board's been working on there, and to provide goals and metrics for that work. And then the last component was really strengthening support for non-teaching roles. We ask our teachers to do a lot. It's not just the classroom. They go out and lead a trip for a week. They're in the dorms taking care of students at night or helping to run a study hall. They're going on global trips. They're advisors in the advisory program. And so right now, we need to do a better job to clarify expectations. What does it mean to be a high expectations dorm leader? What does it mean to be an outstanding outdoor trip leader? And right now, there's very informal ways to give feedback around that for our faculty, but the accreditation process recommended that we formalize it and codify that. So we'll move through. Strategic priorities. In the fall, the board voted on these 5 strategic priorities for going forward. So these are the goals we will use ahead. Really to develop dynamic and flexible academic programming, to articulate and refine experiential learning opportunities and outcomes while developing greater cohesion. Again, we do a lot with experiential learning, making sure it's really clear what do we want students to get out of it, and how do we evaluate their growth in that area. We want to nurture confident, empathic, and healthy students who are prepared to thrive in college and beyond. Cultivate community and belonging where every individual feels valued. And then develop a campus master plan. Done. Easy. So those are the goals ahead that will guide us going forward. And we just established these priorities, and the next steps are around really developing workflow timelines and who's responsible, and making sure that we are taking those steps to make these happen. And what does it look like when we're there? How do we know when we get there? Go ahead. The board has been busy this year. So they were working last year really on identifying strategic priorities and developing a strategic plan. The past 2 years, they've also been developing a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging statement. So ACIS accreditation, check that off our list, that is done. But again, that's the high level work. Now it's for me and for my team to really come down to, okay, what are the goals that we are going to establish for our students? What does this look like for our first grade student? What does this mean? What does this mean for our families? What does this mean for a 9th grade student? Right? But this idea that, and I want you all can read it, and I'll share more about this. We're working on the website that will have this information there now, and Alice is busy getting that to a place to be able to share and link to. But we believe, right, that as a school, we have to be committed to this work, and that our school is a better school because we do the work where our students and our community, we value different perspectives. We value every individual and what they bring to our community. And it is tough work, because students, everyone brings their own individual feelings. And so we have to really roll up our sleeves and do that work at each level and what that looks like. Okay, next slide. All right, continuing on, and just some highlights this year. Lower school highlights. One of the things that we have been working on the past 2 years, and really this has been led by our first grade teacher, Emma, really looking at early literacy, ensuring that our curriculum is research-based, it's a structured literacy program, and that we know that early on that students who are identified as needing more support are going to thrive later on. The longer you wait to identify students struggling readers, the harder it becomes to address those specific needs. And I'm not talking necessarily about learning differences. That could be it, but students learn to read at different rates. But there's a whole body of research on literacy and how students read and the science of reading. And as a school, we need to be following that science, and we do. And so both Emma and Josh have been trained in Orton-Gillingham, which is an approach to, it's a multisensory approach to learning reading based on science and research. We've added in intervention time and extension time. There are some students who are already reading and they're ahead, so we need to meet them where they are. So we've added that into the 1st and 2nd grade program this year. We want to expand that further. We're using data-informed instruction, meaning that we are looking at assessments and really measuring students' progress. And we're just also doing that in ways where students are also learning in curricula that still addresses big ideas. So it's not just reading, reading, reading. It's important, but you look at our entire program, and students still have incredible exposure to arts, to language, to music. But within this, within our ELA program and within the schedule, making sure that we are devoting that time early on to our students to ensure that they are learning and growing. We clarified benchmarks and learning targets. We, again, continue to establish ourselves as a project-based learning school. And again, that doesn't mean that students don't have ever direct instruction, right? Our upper school faculty, many have been trained in this. It doesn't mean they don't ever have a quiz or a test. That's not what project-based learning is. But often provides more meaningful assessment through voice and choice in the process. And so we will continue, and that's been driven by our lower school faculty. But you can have really rigorous project-based learning at all levels. Our middle school does a ton of it. And Doug's here, and he's someone who really brings this in to his classroom in ways that also develops high standards for student learning. And then global themes. So we've looked at really looking at the UN Sustainable Goals through Empowering Global Citizens, a World Course, which is a book by Dr. Fernando Reimers. So we utilize that book this summer, our faculty in that text, and many are integrating those themes into our curriculum because we said, okay, we're not sending, our first graders to Cambodia, right? They're not taking those trips, but they can understand those global themes, and they can understand those global themes, especially at a local level, right? So some of you have seen those projects, right, from looking at chocolate and chocolate production around the world, or looking at in kindergarten, community first responders. Who's in my community? Right? That matters. That's part of our global themes. And then moving into the upper school where they're now traveling, where they're taking what they've learned and they're going out and they're being immersed in another culture. And there's nothing that really supplants that type of learning for our students. We'll keep going. Middle school this year, one of the ways we've integrated developed greater cohesion is in our outdoor education program and our Friday Pops. So looking at how that builds into our upper school program and what we want students to be able to learn and do. That's been highly successful, and we'll continue to grow and develop that next year. Middle school has been, I think, one of the most formative ways where our students grow, not just socially, but academically. They are ready for high-level intellectual work. And they're ready in ways that still support them and nurture them where they are, so we meet them where they are, but they are doing presentations, they're performing solos. You will see them this Thursday night or this Friday in Beowulf, right, where they've had to take a text, they've had to memorize their lines and put on the entire production from start to finish. We've also enhanced our advisory time this year, which feedback from teachers that's gone really well. I'm really looking at what do middle school students need, right? Separating, kind of thinking about Emerald as K-8. It's not like what does everyone need, it's like what do middle schoolers really need to be successful, and really addressing the unique needs of that developmental stage. And then continued interdisciplinary focus through skill building. So again, having those big ideas so that middle schoolers are doing really challenging work, reading challenging texts in ways that really build their skill in communicating, thinking, reading, writing, and in mathematical literacy. As we look at the upper school highlights, although actually our middle school faculty did this as well, we've had everyone trained in mental health first aid and experiential learning, both in terms of risk management and in providing meaningful outcomes. And we had Simon from, I always get the name wrong, is it Where There Be Dragons? I always think of, I get them confused with was it the Giants, the 90s band? There May Be Giants, yeah. So anyone's my generation, that's where I always get them mixed up. But they came and did an experiential learning course, professional development for our 6th through 12th grade faculty. Again, thinking of that cohesion. How do you really make for meaningful experiential programs, right? It's not just go out and you're just running around in the outdoors. That's not what our teachers do. It takes a lot of planning, a lot of commitment to have a robust program, and to have one that's meaningful. And so it's how do you facilitate rich experiences in the field, reflection, and do so in ways that consider risk management, which it's done so safely. As our upper school families know, we are rolling out our new mod schedule next year, and I'm going to share a little bit of this for our K-8 families who may not know a ton about the mod schedule. This is a schedule we've been working on for the past 2 years, and the impetus for the schedule change was really thinking about our global studies program and our ski ride competitive athletes. And we felt like we had a schedule that really served the competitive athletes, and I will say, probably not all of them, but a certain group, well, because even that group has become very different in what their schedules look like and what works. But we hadn't really adapted or reflected on that schedule over the course of the year. So we continue to run it the same way over 10 years. I don't know, Brian, how long that schedule has been pretty similar the last 5 to 10 years at least. And the feedback I received from faculty is they were frustrated by time on learning. There wasn't enough time for academics. They were frustrated because the schedule didn't quite fit the needs of really any group. Like every group sort of was compromised in that. And so we really looked at what's a schedule that can better support all of our students. And so next year, we are moving to a schedule, right? Traditional academic years often broken into semesters or trimesters, which is what it's been at the upper school. And next year, we will have 8 mods. And in every mod, there are 3 classes offered. So students take 1 to 3 classes per mod, depending on their schedule. So, for example, a competitive ski ride in the winter would take 1 class and be okay. So they're only focusing on 1 class at a time. The research we did on this schedule demonstrated an incredible number of benefits to student learners. A lot of that around health and well-being by reducing their cognitive load of only focusing on 2 to 3 classes at a time. We also had our own pilot because our students did this in an intersession. In intersession, they felt like they learned more. The teachers felt like they were able to go deeper in learning. And so we were excited to move into the schedule year-round. For us, it also opens up new possibilities for classes. So next year, for example, I have an alum who's an award-winning filmmaker who'll be teaching a filmmaking mod remotely. I have talked to Elkstone Farm about a partnership because of the time on learning that we can have students learn about environmental science and learn about permaculture through Elkstone Farm. So we're also able to bring in different experts and offer a wider range of classes. Students will have that choice. For example, I have a student who's a horseback rider. She's an equestrian. And so she's thinking of taking January and going to ride her horse in Florida and train. And she can do that. Now you have to make choices, right? You can't have it all. There's going to be more choices. Probably more disappointment, right? It's kind of like when you go to Cheesecake Factory. Always going to be disappointed. There's too many choices on the menu. It's a 75-page menu, right? But I also think so students will have to make choices, but they will have choices to make. And so they have to think of what their priorities are. But we do know that students have passions, a lot of students outside of academics. This schedule will support that. This schedule will also support the students like, I want to take more classes. I want to be immersed in class time. We also are offering a travel mod next year because one of the things that we've heard from ski families is that they're missing out on the global studies program. Again, choices, but it's hard. And so one of our teachers is excited about offering a public health mod for course credit for science and English credit in Alaska in the fall. So our students can do that. They may have to choose whether they go to a ski camp or not, but they can make that choice, right? They haven't started their training competition season at the highest levels yet. And so we are thinking about ways that we can offer more of those mods for students to get academic credit because our skiers need to get credit because they are going to be dropping those classes in the winter. But also for our other students it's opened up to who maybe want that more immersive experiential learning. And so these are just this is the first year, so I'm excited about where this program will go. This year we adopted a new cell phone policy where students do not, they're asked to turn in their phones during the academic day. Now, most don't turn them in, but they also aren't using them, right? If they are, they're sneaking or sneaking out to do it. So the spirit of the policy is intact, right? You used to walk through the halls and you have students just like this or sitting on a couch, each watching TikToks or Snapchat. We know what social media, we know how it's impacting student health. We want our students to connect. Doesn't mean we don't want them to use technology, not at all. But we do believe that during the academic day, having that time to put it aside, I mean, wouldn't you all love it if people said, hey, take this time, put your phone aside, forget about it. And they can come use it and text coaches or text their parents if they need to figure out rides. It's not meant to prevent communication or make their scheduling harder. That's not it at all. What it's meant to do and what it is doing is it's allowing for lunchtime. Now I see students gathering, playing ping pong again, having conversations, looking at each other in the eye. And as much as they grumbled about it at the beginning, they actually, it's been pretty seamless, I would say. And I think they appreciate it because a lot of our students go on GS and they recognize the value of putting that down and not having the dopamine hits from the likes on the social media post and, oh my gosh, so-and-so didn't like it or they did like it. What am I gonna do now? That's a lot for students. And we might see it as we might trivialize it, but it's huge. And it really does impact them. And it impacts their ability to focus, to learn, and to connect and to engage. And so this policy has been, I think, really impactful this year. We've increased our advanced offerings by offering advanced studies in art and in humanities at the seniors level. We're hoping to drive more advanced learning course opportunities in the future as well and continue to do that. We just hosted our first student art showcase last week at the upper school. Incredible amount of art that was out there, the quality of the art. The students curated the entire show from start to finish. And then our college counseling program. We've been working to expand our college counseling program, our communication with families, ensuring that our families have access to the most relevant information as that landscape is shifting, right? It was test optional, now tests are back. It used to be on paper for the first year. This year they're offered digital. SAT is the only way to take it. So things are shifting in that landscape, and we have a dedicated college counselor who works with junior and senior families through that process, because the process has become a lot more complex to navigate than when I went to college. Excellent. I know I'm on late, so this is the last slide, I believe, besides questions. So, looking ahead, we will continue to focus on social emotional learner, thinking about ruler down here. This has been year one. I think received really well in the lower school. I know Mark has familiarity with ruler, and his advice is just to keep focusing on it. That it gets easier and it becomes an ingrained part of the culture in year 2, year 3. So we will continue to utilize ruler with our lower and middle school students. We will continue to look at ways to ensure that social emotional learning, whether that's a specific curricula or whether that's through our advisory program, is strong in the upper school as we think about the emotional health and well-being of our students. In ways that, what are the benefits, what are the drawbacks, and ways to think about it can help them and it can harm them. And so we really need to develop an AI policy in the upper school and bring students into that conversation. Again, continue to focus on early intervention and learning support. We've done some this year and made good strides, but we need to continue to do more. The residential program, for me, that's been a big focus the last few years on increasing activities for our boarding students, right? It's a long winter. Winters in steamboats are long. So think about for our students in the dorm. I mean, I still can't see out my office window because there's a pile of snow there. So I'm just looking out at that. So think about our students are here for 6 months, ways to make sure that they're engaged, they feel they're happy, they want to be here, thinking about what outcomes do we want from a residential program. The Association of Boarding Schools recently created a credentialing program, which I'm excited about because this has been every boarding school everywhere, right? There's so many boarding schools, they've been around forever, but no one's sharing best practices or developing best practices and how do you care for students in a residential setting. The Association of Boarding Schools finally did that last 2 years, and they're now having a credentialing program that our Dean of Students will go through in the fall and work with our dorm leadership. Again, that's student support and well-being. I think we do this well, but given the landscape, we can always do better. And thinking about particularly what personnel do we need. The school does not have a school counselor. Right now we do have a counselor who is getting her hours. She's in training essentially, and she's doing some support, but we outsource most of it, and we need to look at what staffing we need to ensure that we are providing appropriate student support for learning and for mental health. Again, continuing to implement the mod schedule. Anytime you have a new schedule, you need to reflect, you need to get feedback, and you need to be ready to iterate or adjust as that happens. I feel good about the 2 years of research and the work that we've put into the schedule, but with anything new, there's always going to be unforeseen challenges that we will want to make sure that we are looking at and aware of and accommodating. We're heading into another election year. I don't think anybody's dreading this more than the high school teacher or middle school teacher. That's where we are, which is really sad. Like, it's a really sad state of affairs in this country that like we can't have respectful discourse about an election. But we are a school, and we're not going to eschew those conversations just because they're difficult. In fact, this is a place where we need to lean into academic intellectual freedom. We also need to lean into just guidelines. What are some boundaries? But we need to keep them open. Just like in the outdoors, we know that student learning and growth happens when students are uncomfortable. And I believe so in the classroom. So just because ideas might not feel comfortable to you, you might not like it, might hurt your feelings, doesn't mean that idea shouldn't be out there and discussed. What we will not tolerate is hate speech. We will not tolerate speech that doesn't further learning, that's discriminatory, bigoted speech. But within there's a broad range still to discuss and have conversations, and we need to be able to do that. And so we are working on developing guidelines that allows us to engage as a school with these topics and to do so in ways that are going to further student learning. As we look at this world right now, we're in a post-truth world. And so what is real and what is not real, throw AI in that mix right now mimicking individuals' voices, posts. It is hard to know what you're seeing, if that's real or truth. As schools, we need to be able to teach our students how to look at information with a discerning eye, not how to prove what they already think. In fact, prove the opposite of what they think so that they can actually have a better stance, right? What would the other side say? But so much we go into conversations with confirmation bias, just trying to prove a point, rather than to listen and to understand. And that should be the goal, and that's something that we are going to work towards as we think about the election season ahead. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, enhancing our facilities, embarking on an exciting master plan process. That's going to be the future of our campus, our schools, and going to support really the learning and the outstanding work that our teachers and our students are doing in the classroom. Whew, that's long. I'm sorry, but there's a lot happening here. Do we have time? If you want to stay for questions, I'm happy to take a few questions. I know you've been here a while. And I'm also happy to stay after as well. Any questions?
I'll throw one out.
Yeah, Ren.
So many boarding schools look at summer programs for revenue and feeder to the school. Is that something that the upper school is considering, or any discussion on that?
I'd say right now, no. And just because of the work that we need to do in the summer on our facilities. Like, I even this summer wanted to host an orchestra group. For us, it was small. And it was meant to be a community partnership because it's the SSO and they do a lot for us as a school, and I wanted to help them up. I mean, we would get some revenue, not a ton. I don't know if we even have the water this summer with the sewage treatment plant work to provide a good experience for folks living on campus. So I think until we really invest in the infrastructure and the facilities, which the bulk of that work has to happen over the summer, we probably won't go there. There will be a need for staffing and someone to run that as well. I think it's a great possibility, especially Steamboat, right? And I think about, we've been approached by numerous camps soccer academy, because I think CMC rates are going up, or they can no longer host. So I think there's a need, and I think we have the facilities, we just don't have them in the condition to do so yet. It takes more work. But it is a good source of auxiliary revenue. For some schools can generate, extra 10 to 20% per year, so that can be a good revenue generator. And also, like you talked about, admissions, bringing that piece of someone coming there like, oh my gosh, I want to come to school here, right? So it's certainly been discussed. We're not there yet, but certainly in the future, I'd say it would be on the table. I know it's been a long time. I want to thank you for being here today. Thank you for your support, and I'm grateful for this community, and thanks for taking the time.